Very far. It's people who looking at the $300. You know you got $300. You're just sitting there. You need to go. You got some mileage that you built up from when you used to travel. You need to go ahead and book that trip. Redeem your points, book your plane ticket, take your $300 is insane. The fact you can stay in any country and live comfortably for a week is out of control. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you find yourself in the world. Hello, Black America. We are so excited to have you here for the next hour, where we are going to give you a look at the land. We're going to take a look at the places they've told us to stay away from, the places they've told us never come back to, the places where they showed us starving children who couldn't survive unless we sent them 20 cents a day. Just 20 cents a day. And you can make sure these children can eat. So that was one thing they made sure we weren't going to do, was go back there. But thank God we got people in the land now. We got people who have been surveying the premises, been out there living amongst the locals, and they telling us a whole different story.
Absolutely.
We got a wonderful guest who's going to bring us into the motherland, specifically Egypt, specifically South Africa, where he is now. I got my brother, super producer, phenomenal co-host, continuing to keep things flowing the way you do, brother. Curtis Cheatham, how you feel, brother?
I'm excited. I'm glad to be here. I'm excited to be here today.
Great talk we're about to have.
Yes, indeed.
Lots of questions.
Lots of questions.
A lot of questions. We got Marakee, the visual engineer. When you see the visuals, when you see the show, when you see these graphics, when you see, the experience that is Hello Black America video, Marakee's the one making that happen. How you feel, my brother? Excellent. Okay, Curtis. Why don't you give the people a little bit about this brother we're about to bring on, and kind of tell them why they should be excited to hear from this brother in his journey, from your perspective.
Absolutely. I am really excited. Ever since I became aware of this young man, I've been excited to talk with him. I just have a whole host of questions that I want to go into. Like in the Bible, during the time of the Israelites, they had to send out the spies, right, to survey the land. Only 2 of the spies came back with a positive report, Caleb and Joshua. So we need some more good reports, like Caleb and Joshua gave about what's going on in the land that we're looking to inhabit. So No Limit Eddie is a young man who has done that. He's been living abroad in Africa for the last, I believe, 4 years it is. He's a young man. So there's some freedom that he maybe has to someone. Exactly. So he's taking some risks that maybe some of us wouldn't feel comfortable with, but we'll get into that with him as we speak with him. So I'm just excited to speak to this young man. He seems to be very bright, seems to have a great head on his shoulder. So I'm excited to share him and his content with our audience. So we'll get into that in just a moment with No Limit Eddie as we speak with him today.
Absolutely. We always say, listen where you listen, watch where you watch. Thank you to the people that's checking in on Spotify, on YouTube, watching the visual experience. And shout out to everybody who we interact with and engage with in the comments. Some people who are already championing what we're doing. There's some people who are opposed. We love it. We love to see everybody in the comments. And shout out to those of you who have reviewed us. It makes a difference. Even if you just, hit 5 stars and just, you don't have a question, you just want to pat us on the back, whatever you want to do, it makes a difference. So All right, so when I discovered this brother, No Limit Eddie, young man, one thing that just took me, the first thing that hit me is this guy is just a courageous guy. He's not waiting for permission.
Right.
He's not waiting for everything to be cool and everyone go. You know, he basically said at a young age, 21, I believe, I'll see you guys later. Meet me out there.
I got to see how he came to this decision.
Yeah.
Who does that? But he does, apparently.
Right. So why don't you give him a formal introduction, and then we'll bring him on, and we can start to get some of these questions that we have and that the audience has answered.
Well, again, the guest that we're bringing to you today is a young man goes by the handle of No Limit Eddie. You can find him on TikTok and YouTube. He puts a lot of content out there. I'll let him share a little bit more about his content and that sort of thing. But again, we're excited to speak to him because he was brave enough to go and do what some of us probably might like to do. Now, I'm not doing it at my age. Let's face it. Yeah. You probably have to be in his age range to be brave enough, not have enough obligations, familial obligations and things like that. So I'm just really interested to have this conversation with Eddie.
And I'm sorry, this is my fault, Eddie. This is my fault. Give us another minute, because I want you to know, Eddie, what we plan. But by the time you come on, I want you to know kind of what we envision and the excitement we have around Africa. Then you come and you bring your vision and you give us the experience of what you've seen. Okay, so we have a plan that we have called Rep 2025, which, see, the things that we want to do in Africa we're going to continue to lay out regardless of reparations. So Africa is where we can build anything we want to build, as long as we can make sure we own it and we control where the finances and where the money comes from. See, it's no problem with Chinese companies coming into Africa as long as they're not the ones who are the majority of the owners. It always becomes a problem when we look up and we got, billions of dollars and then trillions of dollars being made, but yet the natives in the land don't own any of it. The workers working in the mines don't own any of it. The diaspora from there don't own any of it. No one's owning any of this except the corporations themselves. That's the only thing we have to switch. Because when we consider that see, Africa has done a great job keeping bad money out. Right. Now, they haven't done a good job keeping people from poaching them. But not a lot gets into Africa. What I mean is Africa's, for the most part, not developed to its potential. It has tons of potential in terms of companies, buildings, real estate. The only way Africa is going to get there is they have to let money flow in. And then that is going to build those private companies. Now, where's that money coming from? That's what it keeps going back to for me. If we can make sure that money is coming from us, from the diaspora, from the natives, from the government, even the African government, they're better off being the ones to invest in it versus bringing in outside foreign money. Because and this is just my opinion, when you bring in outside foreign money, that comes with its own set of requirements. They want control. Strings, thank you. We don't need that. What we need is a collective group that will continue to build, that see that the promise of businesses and equity and wealth and peace is in Africa. And that's where at least half of our investment should be there. I have no problem with a person who's investing their in the stock market, in the real estate market in the U.S. But I think we've done a great job of laying a foundation, and showing you why we should not be investing exclusively in the U.S. as a people anymore. Be it, the threat of their economic health is challenged, whether they're going to be a superpower in the long run, that's up for debate. But also, they've burnt down every city we've built over the last 70, 80 years. We did an episode on that. So being that, so you've given us a lot of reasons to not even build here at all. I'm not going to be one of those people who's anti-building in America, but I am certainly 50-50. We need to be at least investing half of our resources, half of our assets, our wealth, our retirement. And I'm hoping that Eddie can do a great job of letting us see what it's like in Egypt and South Africa. Instead of people looking like they used to and saying, man, when I retire, I want to retire down south. I want to retire out in Pennsylvania. We really want to get people to say, including ourselves, we want to retire over in the motherland.
That would be great. That's a great dream, a great idea, a great vision, if you will. And I hope we can bring it to fruition. But we have a young man who can help us understand whether or not our vision is realistic or not. Is it something that we could actually do? So without further ado, why don't we bring our guest on? I guess we don't have an applause that we can do, but when we bring our guest into the building here.
We got No Limit Eddie on stage. Ladies and gentlemen,
What's going on?
Clap it up for this young adventurous jet setter.
All right. Welcome to Hello Black America.
And what we always ask you to do when we start, this is a tradition, and it'll be a tradition among all our guests. You got to just give one big hello, Black America.
All right. Hello, Black America.
All right.
Strong.
There we go.
Strong.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us, Eddie. We appreciate your flexibility and working with us and getting this done. We were excited to speak with you. I think the first thing I want to know, because you start all of your videos with this, let's start with your traditional greeting that you give on all your content. What is that, and what is that? What's the meaning behind that particular greeting that you normally give?
Yeah. Okay. Well, first, I appreciate being on here, being on a platform. Thank you guys for inviting me on. And as far as what I say in the beginning, I say shalom, which just means like peace be unto you all. That's basically what it means.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That aligns with what we're talking about. We consider ourselves peacemakers, and you are greeting everybody with a greeting that is peace unto you. So shows you some alignment right there.
Yeah.
We didn't set that up.
Absolutely. And is that in any is there any religious or cultural identity there that you started?
Yeah. It's like a Hebrew word. It's common amongst certain like camps in the whole like Hebrew Israelite movement. So that is kind of where I originated that saying from.
Okay, well, this is definitely something we want to get in touch, go deeper with as we have this discussion with you concerning, those Hebrew roots and, where you are when it comes to how you identify with the Hebrews.
Gotcha.
But I guess why don't, for the people who don't know, Eddie, you begin to travel. You left the United States 21 years old, correct?
Right.
Solo, not with a family. Just you jumped on a plane, said I'm out of here.
Yeah. So I went on a plane solo, and then maybe 2 weeks later, my sister came and our dog and our cat. So one of 4 of my siblings, came along with me.
Now, when you told your parents, your family extended that you were going to be going to Africa, what was the response?
Yeah.
What were you greeted with?
Were they like patting you on the back? This is great. Were they like, you're nuts?
So I actually have a video like telling my mom, my little brother, like that I was moving to Africa on my channel. So I did document that. But for the most part, I'm a type of person to where they know once I set my mind to do something, there's no change in the mind. It's already there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they're just like, all right, you're going to Africa, like be safe. You know what I mean? That's kind of what it was for the most part.
Now, from my understanding, you were planning to move somewhere like within the States, and then kind of took a left turn and decided to go to Africa. What informed that decision?
Take us back to where you were mentally when you decided that you were going to leave. There's a point in time where Abraham in the Bible has a revelation from God where God tells him to leave his hometown. And what was that like? When did you first start getting the messages that that you felt like God was telling you leave where you came up? Take us through all of that. Go ahead, take your time.
Got you. So that really started when I was around 17 years old. So when I was 17, I switched from traditional school to homeschool, just because they wanted me to take extra classes that I didn't want to take. And so I switched to the homeschool. That had reduced classes. That was cool. So one day I'm at home, finished my schoolwork for the day. I'm on YouTube. I see these people. They're wearing like purple shirts, screaming at people on the street. You're going to hell, da da da, like all kind of crazy stuff. But it was intriguing for me to watch. So I started watching the videos more and more. And it was like this camp called IUIC, and they're talking about this, black people that wrote Israelites. I'm like, I don't know what this stuff is, but let me tune in because it's entertaining at the very least. And so that kind of started me on this rabbit hole. Eventually, I ran into kind of like a doctrine of like Exodus, like you need to eventually leave Babylon. And there's different interpretation of what Babylon is. Some people say it's a church, some people say it's a state, some people say all kind of stuff. So either way, the camp that I kind of ran into was like Babylon is the states, and you need to eventually leave. So I was around 17 years old. So that's when I set the vision. Okay, I'm going to leave the U.S. one day. When I turned 18, I got a passport, even though I had never flown anywhere a day in my life. I had never even been more than 4 hours outside of LA until I left to Africa. And so, I started kind of doing it around that time, kind of making that vision. And then COVID came around. It was 2021 around there. And I was like, okay, LA is kind of crazy. I think I should move to Vegas, a little bit lower cost of living, maybe a little bit better just as far as laws. And I applied for an apartment. I got approved for it and everything like that. We're pretty much ready to go. Then I had a dream that like I should not be going to Vegas. I should go somewhere else. So I don't know where. I started praying again. Week 2 comes in. And these people, African Americans in Tanzania, like we're living in Tanzania and it's great. And so it just so happened that around that time, Magufuli, who was the president of Tanzania, he wasn't doing any COVID tests, no COVID vaccines. The country was completely open. And so the thing, this seemed like a good spot to go to, especially right now. And then like a few months later, I was in Tanzania. So that's kind of the whole rundown. Started at 17, made the move at 21. So,
wow.
Well, we want to get into this a little bit more in just a second here, Eddie. We need to take a quick break. Just a second here, and we'll be right back on Hello, Black America.
Got you.
Can take these syllables and tie up in a bow. Ancestors made it off the boat. Swear I need my reparations. He been dreaming way too long. The struggle I done made it from. Just because my skin golden tone, you know they think I'm dumb. Grit the wheel and crew the street. Diamonds in my pack for lead. The mentals of a country boy. Hustle like an athlete. Missing sleep. Still hear the screams of the slaves. Let breath from his lips. Blood covering of his face. Yeah. Boxing full of money. Ain't no bank accounts. Don't need a loan.
Okay, so No Limit Eddie just lays out his journey of how at 17 he starts to get involved, starts to think. When were you exposed to the Israelites? Was that at 17?
Yeah, like 17.
Okay, so you start to see that they're talking about this exodus of leaving Babylon. Some people say it's spiritual. Some people say it's actually a state. That gets your mind thinking, okay, at some point, all right, if I'm going to be leaving here anyway, let me start looking around and kind of let me not get too comfortable anywhere if I'm, planning to leave here. You end up initially leaving LA, or did you leave Vegas to go to Tanzania, or did you leave LA?
So LA. I went to like apply for the apartments and all that, but I was commuting back and forth from LA to Vegas during that time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you get out there, you've left, just you you're in Tanzania by yourself. Your sister hadn't come yet.
No.
Okay. What is it like when you first hit the ground there? Matter of fact, take us through the building up, because I think what we're trying to do, Eddie, is we're trying to take us through everything that a person who puts their eye on Africa, the mental aspects, the social aspects. What was it? Anything in your mind that says this is not going to work? This is going to be a disaster. I'm gonna, what was it? Any mental turmoil, or were you just dead set, I'm going, it's going to be great, I'm not looking back. What was that like? Take us through that.
Yeah. Lots of roadblocks, lots of obstacles. A lot of this was brand new to me, right? So like I said, I hadn't even like really left more than 4 hours outside of LA. So I never booked a flight before. So I'll book a flight to Tanzania. That's what my first and last name, like I normally do, but I have a middle name that I never use anywhere. Realized that, I can't even fly because I didn't put my middle name on there. So I had to return the ticket, lost a whole bunch of money on that, had to rebook it. I'm like, maybe this is a sign that I shouldn't go. I don't know. I'd have lost $300. So that was one obstacle there. Then, you accumulate stuff when you live in America. So it's like, okay, what am I going to do with all this stuff in my apartment? Am I going to sell it? Am I going to throw it away? Am I going to put it in storage?
Right.
Kind of have
Some people would never go just because they're not getting rid of their stuff.
Right.
Yeah. So that's a big thing. Like, you know what I mean? You kind of become attached to your possessions. And where man's treasures are, so is his heart. So essentially, like, you kind of can be attached to your stuff so much that you end up, staying in a particular area. So yeah. So that was going on. Of course, it was COVID, so it's like, man, I'm not taking no COVID test, I'm not taking no vaccine, so I'm trying to like maneuver through that. And so it was a couple of obstacles for sure, to kind of make that final play. Then you just have the doubts, overall, like, dang, what am I going to do? Is it really going to work out? I don't know. But I have faith that, whatever I put my mind to is going to work. But it still is like a little bit in the back of your mind, like, I don't know. Another obstacle I ran into was I ended up missing my layover flight. So ended up being stuck in Turkey for like 24 hours, having to rebuy a flight and all kind of stuff like that.
When you were on your way out there?
Yeah. So
some people would have turned back. They would have took that as a sign. This is a sign.
Yeah. So I flew from LA to Istanbul, Turkey, and Istanbul has the biggest airport in the world. So I didn't know that at the time, and the layover time was so short that I was just like sightseeing too much. I ended up missing my plane, so that kind of screwed me a little bit. So I ended up being stuck for 24 hours. But at the end of the day, we made it to Tanzania. The first few moments was like surreal, like, whoa, I'm really in Africa? Like, is this real? People run up to you, they're trying to scam you with the taxis. I got a taxi, trying to overcharge you, But it was a good experience overall on that first day.
So there's some things that don't change no matter where you are.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
When you set foot though on African soil for the first time, take us through what your mind was going through your mind at that time.
Yeah. Okay, so some people be like, I touched the ground and I started crying. It was a great experience. That did not happen for me. At that point, man, I had been traveling for like 2 days straight.
Gotcha.
So I'm just like in like militant mode. Get me to my Airbnb so I can take a shower.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's really what it was at that point. Just being safe, making sure I had all my stuff with me, that I got my money out, and just get me to the Airbnb. But that first ride there was quite interesting because it's so raw in Africa. So it was like 2 in the morning, maybe. You see people on the side of the road selling chapati. You know what I mean? You see like shacks where people are like selling food out of. It's like, what's going on here? Mm-hmm. But it's intriguing, but also at the same time kind of like off-putting. When you're so used to everything being developed, everything kind of being flowing in a certain way coming from LA. So that's like my first take.
And that's what I guess when you've been to 4 African countries now so far?
Yeah, Egypt, Tanzania, Uganda, South Africa, yeah.
Okay.
4.
So if you're somebody's plotting, we want people watching, and they're already watching, but more people are going to keep watching and start to plan where they want to visit first, where they want to retire. They got their eyes on Africa. What are you using now that you've been to 4 countries? You from the time you came to where you are now, you've had a breadth of experience. What are you using now to determine where you're going to visit and where you're going to spend the majority of your time? Because I think based on what you use to basically narrow down your best choices, some of the people listening might use those same parameters. So what are you using to determine where you want to be at?
Okay, got you. So there's like different camps. So if you're looking to visit Africa, you can pretty much choose any country depending on what you're after. right? So some people want to just be in a country that's surrounded by Black people, right? And if that's the case, then you can go to any East African nation, any West African nation, have a ball all the time. Now, if you're looking to move to a country, right, which is kind of like that next evolution, the most important thing is a visa, because in America, we just live. We don't have to worry about licenses and all that type of stuff to live in a place. You just live, right? But the moment you leave America, you realize, okay, I'm an illegal alien now. Like I'm an immigrant now, and so you now have to put yourself into visas and residency permits and citizenship. Like there's so much of a rigmarole to like live in a place for a long period of time. And so when it comes to moving to a country, it doesn't matter about how beautiful it is. It doesn't matter about the language. It doesn't matter about the people. It matters about, are they going to give you a visa? That's one reason why I stay in Egypt so much, is because the visa laws are so easy for Americans to kind of to use. So yes, those countries are a lot harder to come by, as far as moving to it. But I think the Gambia is a good place to move to. Ghana is another good place. Egypt is a really good one. Those are the three that kind of make it easy for Americans to kind of settle in and reside for a while. And then as far as retirement, once you are retiring and you have, let's say, like pensions, most companies will open themselves up to you, because they know the U.S. is going to pay every month, and so they want that money to come in. They'll have usually some type of law where you have to like open a local bank account and then have your deposit kind of go there. But other than that, you're pretty much straight. So that's what I would say. Most countries open up. South Africa is open for that, for a retirement visa. For sure.
So that's something to take note of, because Eddie, when you just mentioned people who have pensions or retirement income, if you have investments, if you have cash flow independent of a place, you're not making your money specific. You can make your money from anywhere. Then this is the time where you want to look at where you want to be at. And I know, Eddie, we want to make sure we give you time later to talk about how you've been able to travel the way you have traveled. We'll get into that. But I want to make sure people know, if you have basically cash flow, even a pension or Social Security, I mean, there's some incredible places that you can live right now. And I want to get into, I don't know how much time we have in this segment, but I want to get into some cost of living. Some cost, because some of the videos that caught my eye, and I think that have caught a lot of people's eye, Eddie, is when you make these cost of living videos where you show this is what you can get for $200 US a month. This is what you can get for $800 or $1,000 US a month. Why don't you take us through, from a cost of living standpoint? You're talking to somebody who's bringing in $60,000 US. It could be from investments. It could be from rental income. It could be from, whatever the cash flow is coming from, Social Security. And now they're like, my quality of life here in the U.S. on $60K is not really what it used to be 20 years ago. They're looking for other places. What have you seen country-wise, cost of living being the best to the most expensive in your journeys?
Got you. Okay, perfect. So yes, when it comes to that, right, the first thing I'll mention too around those visas that I mentioned before, it works best if you do have like a government-based pension or a SSI or military retirement. Those work best. And then they're also kind of discriminatory when it comes to age. You gotta be like 35 and older. So most people who make this move generally are a little bit older. I'm kind of like an outcast in that sense, being 25 at this point. But when it comes to like cost of living, like you can live most places in Africa for like $1,000 a month, right? But that is kind of just getting by. Preferably, if you can make like $2,500 a month, like you can live very, very, very well in most of these places. So let's say, for example, Egypt is my preferred country as far as a home base, simply because it has great visa laws and the cost of living is incredibly good. So just to even give you a comparison between Egypt and what I am now in South Africa, this bottle of water will cost me like $1.20. It's like 1.5 liters. So it's maybe twice the size of a 16 ounce. It'll be like $1.20 in South Africa. In Egypt, that same bottle will be like 10 cents.
Wow.
So that's like, and it's insane cost of living in Egypt. So like, you can get meals in Egypt for $1 and like a full meal and be like cool. So your cost of living is insane there. Now, other countries, let's say for example, Uganda, which is where I spend a lot of time as well. The cost of living is low technically, but you end up spending a lot of money because you don't want to live like a local. And people make that mistake of trying to live like a local, but you don't want to be showered out of a bucket. Like no, we have
Right.
a certain policy right that we're used to, and we cannot just adjust to live like a local. And so, even though the cost of living may be cheaper in certain countries, especially like the sub-Saharan African countries, you end up spending a lot more to get the creature comforts that we're used to, right? So, you may go to a lot of places that they don't even have a hot water heater. So you're taking cold showers all the time, right? And so if you're a man, maybe you can deal with that, but your wife is not going to allow that.
I can't deal with it.
Yes, exactly.
Second cold
So that's-
shower, it's already old for me. When is
Right, it's already over. Now, it is hot most of the time, so the cold shower is cool, but still, you want to end up wanting to put in a hot water heater. So now you got to buy that, and you got to get it installed, and they're going to rip you off because you speak English. You know what I mean? So you might spend more money, you know? So yeah, that's like the cost of living, man. $1,000 you can live pretty much anywhere, but you're gonna live basic. 2,500 you can live a nice life in most countries, a month.
Now we only have a minute or so left in this segment, but I mean, are you as a younger person now? Most people in America, you're looking to build for your future, whether towards retirement, sock some money away, whatever your mechanism, investments or what have you. Are you able to build towards your future while you were? One of your reasons I think you said for going, you kind of feel like you're on vacation all the time. If I'm not misquoting you there, so it sort of lends itself to. Yeah, a life of just kind of free, doing whatever you want. But are you able to like look towards a time where you might have a family, where you might want to retire and just, be still for a while? Are you able to build towards that kind of life?
Yeah. Okay, so there's multiple layers to this. So number one, I think cash flow is king. And so usually I try to use my cash to create more cash flow. Because in reality, if you just have cash sitting there, it's pretty much appreciating and you're losing value. And so any excess cash that I'm not using to invest in more cash flow, I put into treasuries. Right now, you're getting like 4.6%, almost 5%. So you're kind of beating inflation. Doing that, that's where I put all my excess cash if I'm not investing it towards more cash flow. And then I'm always going to different countries to figure out where I might want to create a next home base. But it's so difficult to know, or it's so difficult right now to stay in a place long term because of my age. So many places, like if you want to get a long-term visa, they do discriminate based on how old you are. It doesn't matter how much money you have, like you can have this a good amount of cash flow, but if you're not this age, they will not give you the visa. And so that's kind of the hard thing as far as now. But eventually, I plan on definitely going to some African country, buying some land, but then kind of like having a homestead over there.
Okay. When we come back, I definitely want to. We want to hear what are the cons of a place like Egypt? Because for me, I literally look at the cost of living. I look at the heritage. I actually did a DNA test that shows that my fathers come from that region in Egypt before we were in West Africa. So my DNA test shows that my fathers are from ancient Egypt. I'm curious whether it be government, whether it be safety, whether it be food. What are the cons that if 10,000 black people were going to come there from America in the next year or two, what do they need to know, if anything? So we'll talk about that on the next segment. We'll be right back. Okay, so we're having a lovely discussion with a person who's been traveling like like any of us would think. When you think traveler, you don't think about a casual. You think about somebody, they're always on a plane, they're going somewhere, they're seeing interesting things, cameras. And this is what I get when I look at, No Limit Eddie, traveling 4 years, 25 now, been to 4 countries in Africa. A lot of good, has promoted on his channel for years, how wonderful it is. But we want to get into some of the bad, some of the stuff that you better be ready for. And I think what we have to start doing is realizing that if we're talking about leaving America, there are things here that we don't like. As much as we might say, yes, these things are developed, these things are in place, we already know we're dealing with things that make us uncomfortable as black men and women. And so, no, we're not coming from a perfect place, is the point.
Clearly not.
So it's always a matter of weighing out the pros and cons. But Eddie, talk to lay out for someone who's making a plan to get to Africa, get to Egypt specifically over the next year or two, because the cost of living is low. They can go and they can have a beautiful apartment for $500 US a month. They can live good. If they're only making $1,500, $2,000 a month, they can live comfortably. But tell us, what may be some culture shocks to them? What may be some things that have them, on the edge of the bed at night contemplating going home?
Okay, got you. Yeah, so that's the thing, right? I almost feel like most people are not ready to live outside of America, right? And so I say this because America is a culture more than it is a land. It's a culture. And so if you're kind of in that system, it's very hard to unplug from that system. And so I had a lot of success being in Africa because I didn't watch football. I didn't watch basketball. I wasn't keeping up with the Kardashians. I wasn't so ingrained. Well, I'm so serious. I wasn't so ingrained in American culture. And so what I do here is the same thing I was doing in the States, right? Just reading, focus, working, and so that's the thing. So some culture shocks you're gonna run into is like, yo, people are not gonna speak your language. And a lot of countries you go to, if you're coming to Egypt in particular, they're gonna speak Arabic, right? And so you gotta know that it's a Muslim country, and so you might be asleep, and next thing you know, you're gonna hear somebody singing over a loudspeaker. You know what I mean? You're gonna wake up to that a few nights, because the mosque are gonna do their prayer calls at sunrise, right? So sometimes it's 4 in the morning, sometimes it's 5 in the morning, right? So you gotta, kind of be used to that. You're also gonna be seeing like, especially in Egypt, they have this thing called Eid, and they're gonna like slaughter sheep and goats, and so you're gonna drive by, you're gonna see legs of animals on a road, like what the heck is this, right? And so there's all kind of stuff that is definitely going to be shocking to the average person coming from America over to Egypt, right? And so those are some of the big things I would say are the shocks or the culture shocks people may experience or expect when going to Egypt, for sure.
Do you feel? I remember I was in Dubai and heard somebody telling me, a black man telling me that he felt more like a full black man there because he didn't feel like the same pressures, the same fears, even if you will, of like law enforcement, things like that. What's your experience as far as feeling complete as a black man living in Egypt or on the continent of Africa as opposed to the United States?
Yeah. So I would just use the word free. I feel free here, right? Like I can be myself 100% of the time and be okay, right? And so in America, like you do have the fear of everyone for the most part because you got gangs that are black that want to kill you. You got white people that want to kill you. You got the police that want to kill you. You got the food industry that want to kill you. The medical industry want to kill you.
Right.
So this enemy. You
Gotta
got to be on your
fear of
P's.
everybody. You're all against me.
Exactly. That's how I can feel at times.
Yes, that's a
and
fact.
So to be in Africa, right, is freeing. Okay, so let's say, for example, maybe your hair is not cut. You don't have a haircut. You can walk outside. Everybody black, they understand what it looks like when your hair is not cut. So you're not gonna get judged, or you're not gonna get like those weird stares or anything like that. You know what I mean? Like it's just different. The culture is just different to where you can be yourself 100% of the time and not feel judged for basically being yourself. That's one of the best things about being in Africa, the feeling of freedom that you have. I have a motorcycle in Egypt. I can speed past the police, cut in front of the police. They don't have that ego here. So where they want to prove I'm the boss, I'm the man. Like, no, people speed by the police all the time, and the police don't go and start chasing them down. In my 3.5 years of living in Egypt, I've seen 0 like police pullovers, right? And
Wow.
so, yeah. What they do instead is they'll do like kind
I
of like a
passed one
DUI.
today.
You said what?
I passed one today.
Oh, really?
We're gonna see somebody pulled over by the police daily. You have seen it once in 3
daily.
years. That's
Right.
incredible.
Right. And that's the thing, right? It's like they're fishing for problems, right? They want to give you a ticket for some reason to collect money for the state, right? And so you kind of have to deal with that so much in the States, but that's not necessarily what you deal with here. When the police are much more friendly, and I think it has to do with being like a homogenous society to where everyone is the same, so they can look at them as their brother or their sister, so they're not going to harm them. But in America, it's like, okay, it might be a white cop, he pulls over a black man, or it might be a black cop pull over an Asian man, whatever it is. But it's not brotherly love as it is in these other countries when they are homogenous, right? And so I feel like the police are more so members of the community in these countries, so they don't really have the desire to do kind of slimy business in like say Egypt. Now, when you go to sub-Saharan Africa, though, you're going to be safe, but they're going to try to get a bribe out of you, right? You know, they're going to try to get some extra money out of you. You know what I mean? If they can. So yeah.
No, that's not a bad thing. I would much rather our brothers and sisters be paying off bribes than not alive anymore.
Right.
You know, out here.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, if we gotta let Ahmaud Arbery go, he got to come up with $500. Let him go. You know, let's come up with the money.
Right.
He'd be alive. So yeah, we take bribery all day over. You know what some of the issues we encounter here. So even as a black man, not being native to that land, not natively speaking the language, you don't get the racism or the negative undertones from the police out there.
Not at all. So, you know, when I go to the immigration, like some of it might be because I'm American and they dislike Americans. So if you're from another country, it may be different. But they have a lot of love for people, I would say, that are melanated. You know, a lot of Egyptians would be like, look, we're the same color. We're the same. Like, bro, you are way less than me. But we're the same. What you want to say.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah, they take pride in being black in Egypt. And so I think there's a big misconception that they think they're white or they think they're, you know, above black people. But from my experience with the Egyptians that I've dealt with, and I have a fair amount of Egyptian friends, no, they don't think themselves as better. They usually think themselves as black people. So
wow,
pretty interesting. Yeah.
We talked a little about your going to, you know, your decision making and what led you to Africa, but there's a lot of, you know, now a lot of folks are leaving America, and maybe a lot more in the months to come. But did you consider anywhere else? There's expat civilizations and different places around the world: Panama, Mexico, Philippines, even in. Well, you have to work there, Dubai and the Arab Emirates and things. Did you consider any place else, or are there still longer range plans to maybe extend this around the world or go someplace other than it on the continent?
Yeah. So I would say in the beginning of like the relocation, no, I didn't consider anywhere else besides the continent. I was just considering a few countries like here in the Middle East. That was kind of my main consideration. But now, as kind of like that conversation we talked about earlier of like where you're going to settle down and things like that, it is a lot easier to settle in places in South America than it is to settle in places in Africa. It's just the laws are better down that side. And so I am kind of expanding my horizon a little bit to think of like, okay, where can I get a second passport from? Where can I get residency from that will kind of be beneficial for like a long-term stay? And South American countries seem to do that. And then my roots, I have, my dad is actually Jamaican. So I have kind of ties there to where I can probably get a passport there. And so I'm kind of looking at all those options.
So what is it going to take to win you over? The country who's going to win you over to stay, to plant your roots where you're not even looking at travel, you're always traveling, but I mean, what are you looking for in that place you're going to say, this is where I want to live? Regardless of where I travel, this is my home base. What are you looking for in that type of place?
Got you. Yeah. So like right now, I want to say like Egypt is the home base. Like I love that country. But the thing is, like when you guys are kind of making these plays, it's for the audience. A visa law can change at any moment. And so you always have to have backup options in play. So if we can see, for an example, when the whole situation was Ukraine and Russia happened, people who had passports that were Russian got them revoked from a lot of from countries where they had bought citizenship from. And so at any moment in time, the ties could turn against you. And so this is why I'm saying I'm looking at trying to get a secondary passport. Maybe something happened with the U.S. and now these countries are not friendly, but I got a next one that I can use, right? And so kind of always want to have backup options available. And so that's why I'm here in South Africa to see, hey, maybe this can be a secondary home base. And that's what I'm always kind of looking at.
We've talked a little about, Eddie, about, you're traveling, and I've watched a couple videos where you said you feel like you're, one of the main reasons you enjoy this type is because you feel like you're on vacation all the time, which is a great feeling. I wish I could, have more of that. Do you ever plan to come back? Do you ever, at this point, are you looking for a time, I don't know, 10, 20 years down the road, I'll come back to America then? Or are you on this
visit?
Are you on this track for
America
for the
is
long term?
not on the list of places to visit.
Yeah, America's not on the list. I mean, it's going backwards. It's not going forward.
It's getting lower on the.
Yeah, for sure. So if I have to go back to do some paperwork, anything like that, sure, I'll make it happen. But as far as like, I just want to go back to this, no. I don't really see that happening or progressing. I plan to marry a nice African woman, get citizenship that way too, get a third passport probably, get my children extra passports. And that's the plan. I have no desire to really go back to the States. I don't see anything that's going to benefit me from going back per se.
Did you, you said paperwork, were you able to, we just ended our political season here in America. Were you able to participate? Was that important to you at all? Did you participate in the election process?
Not really, man. Not really. You know what I mean? Doesn't matter who's president. You know what I mean? That's like you always got to find a way to do it on your own. You know what I mean? And make it happen. So I'm not a big voter. I don't even think I'm registered to vote, to be honest. Yeah. When I turned 18, there wasn't even an election. So by the time I left, it was no time to even register to vote. But yeah, I don't really deal with the politics too much, for sure.
And that's there's a big group of people who are just like you at this particular point. We're going to have to deal with whatever the results are of whether we are voting or not voting. And I think the people who are not voting, they're trying to be, more self-sustaining. Listen, it's going to be on me. It's going to be on, and I think as a community, when we consider what's happening here in the United States, even what we're seeing since President Trump has been elected, you have a lot of people who are really just planning their own life. They're basically saying, hey, well, regardless, my guy who I voted, he got in. Some people are waiting for him to fix everything. Some people, they're like, okay, I need to make some plans. I need to, I'm not going to sit here and wait. So and that's why this episode is so important, because frankly, I would tell anyone to go and visit Egypt immediately, if not sooner. If not sooner. Because a vacation to Egypt for a week, Eddie, U.S. roundabout, throw out a number, what a person could have a nice vacation eating. Take the plane out of it, because we never know what the plane is going to be. But just a week in Egypt, eating good food, staying at some nice places. What do you think it's going to cost?
Okay, so should I include hotel in there too, or
throw the hotel in, just everything except the plane. Okay. Just some general estimates for the people listening.
Got you. Okay, so I would say for a week, if it's a solo person, I'm gonna just do the number, and then I'll do with the hotel. So I'll say $300 will take you super far. Like a $100, I think, is 4,700 Egyptian pounds. So it's like 47K per 100. Oh no, no. Yeah, 4.
You said $300 can take you far.
Yeah, like $300 will take you very, very, very far.
Very far. It's people who
you'll probably
who looking at the $300. You know you got $300. You're just sitting there. You need to go. You got some plane. You got some mileage that you built up from when you used to travel. You need to go ahead and book that trip. Redeem your points. Book your plane ticket. Take your $300 is insane. Go ahead. The fact you can stay in any country and live comfortably for a week is out of control.
You can have a lot of entertainment, like because you can catch an Uber for 70 cents in Egypt. Like,
wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, like
what are we doing out here?
Listen, I'm about to see if I can get a plane out of here this afternoon. Let's see where I can go.
Nah,
what
for
are we,
sure.
jerks?
So, it's the spot, man. Egypt is a good spot, and it's underrated in a lot of cases, in my opinion. But it's like if you want the traditional, African feel where it's surrounded by Black people, go to Uganda. Uganda is a cool place. Very, very friendly people, very honest people. So that's my second vote. If you want the whole African feel, go to Uganda. You'll like it. If you just want to leave the U.S. and just kind of visit somewhere else, Egypt is a really, really good spot. I think it's highly underrated amongst our community.
We want to go into that a little bit more. And on this last segment, we were wondering if we were going to stay this whole time, but you have been very engaging, and we appreciate that. Yeah. But we certainly on this back end here, when we come back, we want to hear a little bit more about how, I'm sure our audience wants to know, how are you able to do this at your age and live so comfortably? So we'll get into that in just a moment. Hello, Black America.
Since 2020, I've been showing people everything car dealers like the one I'm standing in front of don't want you to know about car buying. Things like you don't need a down payment to get a great deal, you don't need to be a great negotiator, and you definitely don't need to spend more than 30 minutes in a car dealership. I spent 14 years in the car business, 5 with Mercedes-Benz, 5 with General Motors, and I just released my new digital book, Cars from Home, 7 Steps to Saving Time, Money, and Avoiding Dealerships. It's already 5-star rated, and I want the entire Hello Black America audience to have a copy at 75% off. So go to carsfromhomebook.com, use promo code HBA as in Hello Black America, and don't forget to send me your success story. If you're enjoying what you're watching, the easiest thing you could do to support us is hit that like button. Let's get back to it.
Hello, Black America. Welcome back. We're having a fascinating conversation with No Limit Eddie. He's taking us through some great things to do, not to do, some cost analysis. When we just left, you were going through, we asked you to kind of break down what a week-long, maybe Egyptian vacation would cost. You said, now this was without airfare, of course, but you were saying about $300 takes you a long way. Now, that doesn't include the lodging though, right? We're still
Well, lodging might be a little bit more. I usually do Airbnbs, maybe like $100, $200, max $300 for like a good Airbnb for a week.
For a week, not a night.
No, not a night. They're like $30 a night for like a decent one usually.
So if somebody said somebody want to come out with they want to ball, live in the lap of luxury, they're gonna spend $100 a night on an Airbnb. They get something nice.
They'll get something super nice. Yeah, New Cairo. If you go to New Cairo, get something really nice. I'm there for $100 a night. If you can even find anything for that price, that's kind of high there. But yeah,
wow. That's kind of high. Oh my goodness!
I heard some of my younger friends talking about they spent $10,000 on a night in America.
Yeah,
like bottle service and all that. Oh, are you kidding me?
$100 a night, $80 a night for a nice hotel in New Cairo. New Cairo is this new, it's the new area in Egypt they've developed. Right. Is that for a lot of the government or for the dignitaries? Is that who are they planning to live in that New Cairo area?
No. Okay, so the New Cairo is for civilians. Then there's a new administrative capital. I think that's what you're talking about. That's where they have like the military portion and like kind of like the president stuff is down that side. That's what they're still kind of building out.
So if somebody wanted to live in the safest areas of Egypt, where's that area?
Everywhere in Egypt is safe. There's nowhere you're gonna go and feel like, oh, I'm unsafe, or I'm gonna get stabbed, or I'm gonna get robbed. Everywhere in Egypt is safe. For sure. Even on the poorest of the poorest, nobody's robbing nobody in Egypt. I've left my keys in my motorcycle, went into the store, came back, motorcycle's still there. Like, I've left my phone places, leave. Oh crap! I forgot
You
my
ain't
phone.
gotta leave the keys. In America,
That's right.
it don't have to have the keys to get stolen. You can,
Right. No, for sure.
That's
They'll
incredible.
dig quick. So it's safe. In all like the residential areas, you'll be all right for sure.
Do you see any people, unhoused people? I know you've talked in your videos before that living in LA, there's a large unhoused population. Do you see any of that? Any kind of beggars on the street? Those sort of things that we deal with, or you don't want to stop at too many traffic lights around here because somebody's coming up to the car asking you for
No,
something.
for sure. Okay, so yeah, like that was one of the big reasons why I did not like LA. The homelessness was getting outrageous. There's a lot of homelessness out here, actually, in Cape Town. A lot of it. You do definitely have beggars in Egypt. Egypt is known for having beggars, but I would say they're a little bit different. A lot of times they're children, but not even adults. And I don't like them either. I'm not gonna lie, but the difference is Egypt is like a dry country, so they don't really have alcohol. It's kind of hard to get drugs there, so you're not seeing tweakers walking around. So it's just impoverished people. So it's a little bit, you don't feel as like you can get around them, but it's still annoying too.
Sure.
They still have the, but it's not a crap ton of them.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I mean, you consider you haven't held a job in over 4 years, correct? Oh, since
Probably like 5.
So well over 5 years, you've traveled to 4 countries. You live an incredible life. You're always on vacation, it seems like. Why don't you take us through, as well as the audience, how you are able to do this and kind of, what you offer to people who are trying to do this themselves. Like they like you, because your mission is not just to show people this life that they're able to live through travel, but it's also to show them how they can create some income to be able to do this. So why don't you break this down for us? How have you been able to do this?
Yeah. Okay. So essentially, even when I was in the States, like my last year, I was just fully self-employed. And so when I moved over to the continent, there was a lot of people who were much older than me, 40s, 50s, who had families and everything that moved to the continent with them, but they were like running out of money and asking me for money and asking me for money. I'm like, yo, it's so cheap to live here. How do you not have money? And then I realized that so many of our people, we have no idea how to make money without a job, like zero idea. And so we'll sell the house, we'll get the money that we work from our job and then move over. We have this nice, little chunk of savings, but we're spending it and have no way to replace it. And so people end up going broke, and it happens usually a lot faster. And so I started kind of teaching people what I was doing online, selling on Etsy, and I created a course around that, started selling that. And then from there, I kind of jumped into like the course creation game as a whole. And so now I'm gonna help people to kind of do exactly what I do: create YouTube content and then market a course that they sell. Right. And so you guys can learn more about that at NoLimitEddie.com. So go to NoLimitEddie.com. You can watch the video and then book in a call to speak with me and see if you're kind of like the right fit for that. But yes, so, a lot of people want to move to Africa. It's a dream for most people, but the finances kind of restrict most people from doing it because you got to punch in and punch out. You can't be in Egypt punching in and punching out in Connecticut. Right. So, yeah, you got to find a way to kind of escape the 9 to 5. And so, yeah, that's what I've been doing.
Give them that website again, Eddie. Throw that website out there again for the listeners.
Yeah, for sure. So let's go to NoLimitEddie.com. That's EDDIE.com, and you can find pretty much everything else from there.
Okay, this is very important because when you consider that if you could make an extra $1,000 a month or $800 a month, now again in the U.S. that doesn't change your lifestyle much. But if you're talking about following this journey that Eddie's been laying out for us over the last, almost hour, you can live great certain places bringing in $1,000 a month extra, bringing in $1,500 side money extra. You can go to a place like Egypt and live very comfortable on $1,000, $1,500. So I mean, I think this is incredible. I think the more opportunities we have to make money like this, the more we can set people free because, they're tied to these jobs where they're making their 30, 50, 60 grand, 70 grand. But like you said, Eddie, when they're tied to that job and that's their income, they can't make these moves.
Right. The corporation is a new plantation. So you're like locked in and tied into that joint.
You are not kidding about that. Eddie,
Yeah.
this has been an outstanding conversation. I still have another page full of questions that I could have asked.
Tons of stuff.
Part two.
We gotta
Absolutely,
do it.
we can work that out.
If you would oblige us, we'd love to have you on for a part two.
sure.
Go ahead.
Well, listen, your journey continues. You're continuing to go to different places. You're getting on a plane in a few hours here and heading somewhere else. So we're going to want to understand what's going on the continent, and it's great to be able to have eyes on the ground, feet on the ground that are actually experiencing these things. Is there anything that you want to leave with the audience that, you know, is important that maybe we haven't touched on today, that you any kind of cautions or anything that you want to leave our audience with that you've experienced, or any kind of inside tip that you want to leave for the audience?
Yeah. So I think one big thing is just do it, right? Like that's what I want to say is just do it. So many people are like, okay, I'm going to wait until I retire, right? And so you have that corporation that's kind of holding you down. And then by the time you get to retirement age, your body is so beat down, so worn down, your mind is so beat down, so worn down. You're now tied into the medical industry. Now you can't leave because you got to get your medicine. You got to go to your doctor. You got to do this. And so America is never going to let you go. You just have to kind of make the jump and kind of go for it, because waiting is not going to get you anywhere in a lot of ways when it comes to this moving abroad stuff, for sure.
I want to ask a question for the older of us, because I get the impression that this is sort of a young man's game, right? Even though you say that most countries don't want you if you're under 35. They want you to be a little older.
Yeah.
But I'm just keeping it real. It takes a certain amount of energy and, oomph to just get out there and take this kind of move. And it seems like it's a younger man's game to do that and get out there and just do it.
I think it's just
the
America,
opposite, man.
I
It's
think
the
you're right.
opposite.
Go ahead.
All of my friends are married with children older. All of them that I've met that are here from the U.S. So I don't have any friend that's here on the continent that is 20, 25, 26, 27. No. So yeah, it's mostly families that kind of relocate here. Yeah, they had a house, they sold the house, they kind of had that nut, and then they kind of made it to play. It's very rare to run into anybody that's like younger doing it.
So you're telling me that that's something that's just in my head I got to get rid of.
Yeah. It's the opposite. Maybe because social media makes it seem like that, right? Maybe like the people who are most vocal are younger, like me, Mark Meets Africa, Austin Holloman. Maybe we're like the face of it. But the people who really make the move, they're like your guys' age. They usually have children, wife, and they kind of make the move over.
Oh, amen.
I think that's great. That's great to know. If we can help it, we want to do our part in helping a whole host of people get over to Africa in different parts. There's a lot of questions, as Curtis said, that we did not have time to get into. We didn't have a chance to get into, the laws and some of these visa laws and what you're seeing concerning the countries and the government. Who are the governments that you see are easy to work with? Who are the governments that are, maybe they're bought by Europe, they're a little corrupt, maybe if you've seen any, like this is all stuff that we want to be, we didn't get into the Hebrew Israelite heritage and why you identify with that. So if we could, and we'll keep in touch with you, if we could get you back for a part 2, Eddie, I'm sure the listeners, we'd love to have you. I'm sure the listeners would get a lot out of it if you're open to coming back, sometime soon.
Absolutely.
Definitely, let's do a part 2. Let's run it back. You know what I mean? Let's answer the rest of the.
I thought you weren't a basketball person. You know the term now.
Yeah,
Run it back.
Yeah.
Run it back.
Yeah. Of course. We all play basketball coming up. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We've had the pleasure of having No Limit Eddie. You can find him on TikTok. You can find him on YouTube. Go check out his content. It's really engaging and entertaining and informative. Thank you for joining us on Hello Black America. Deshone, what are you thinking? How do you feel about this?
You know I love Egypt so far. I love it more after today. We got somebody who spends months of the year there. So to have somebody that I'm talking to who talks about how safe it is and the food and the quality of life and the scenery, obviously there's bad with everything, and we tend to go right to the bad. We need to focus more on these pros because that just excited me. I'm more excited about getting to Egypt than I was before we had Eddie on. That's not even a question.
Absolutely. I can't wait to get back, set foot on the continent one day, and experience what No Limit Eddie gets to experience on a daily basis. We'll go into this a little deeper. I'm hopeful that we'll be able to talk with you again. Great time today.
Absolutely. Great time. Listen where you listen.
Great,
watch
great.
where you
Appreciate
watch.
you guys have.
Everybody check in with No Limit Eddie. Eddie, the floor is yours. Close us out, brother.
Oh, no, I was just saying, appreciate you guys having me on. You guys make sure to review the podcast, like the podcast, watch it wherever you guys are supposed to watch it, and share it out too. Share it out with a friend's family.
Appreciate you. That is No Limit Eddie, the traveling savant. We're gonna continue to follow him, continue to help him bring his wonderful journey to us, to our listeners, so we can kind of, be a fly on the wall along his travels and get his experiences. This has been great. Hello, Black America.